Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to teach you how to send API requests using amazing Redux Toolkit. Redux Toolkit has a bunch of benefits over other methods for sending requests to APIs such as Axios. So for example, Redux itself is going to handle everything for us. It's going to cache results for a bunch of times, and it's going to take care of storing the results in the global state of our application, which we received from API. No matter a custom API or another API from Rapid API, for example, it doesn't matter actually. Now, one thing I want to mention is that I know working with Redux is tough for a lot of people. People always say that, especially beginners. Especially, it's hard for beginners working with Redux and Redux Toolkit. But actually, I promise it's all getting better and better when you actually start practicing it by yourself. Okay, so for example, you're gonna watch this video, right? After this video, go ahead and start creating a simple example of your own. Change the API you want to use, because there are like tons of APIs out there for you. Just go to Rapid API and get started. So don't worry at all. If you get if you get to practice and practice more and more Redux and Toolkit will get easier for you. It's not that hard that you think. Okay. So as well as this stuff, I will try my best explaining Redux Toolkit for you guys in order to understand it better and better. So in this session, we're going to be diving into API requests using Redux Toolkit, and in the next one, we're actually going to have a real-world example in which we can fully understand Redux and Redux Toolkit with a custom fake API, and basically you're going to be a Redux and Redux Toolkit master. So stay tuned for that video and subscribe to the channel. And now let's get started. So first off, I created a simple React app, which you can see here. You can go ahead and create one by yourself using this command. And this // is the folder you want npx to create a React app for you in. Alright, so after you created a React app, let's mention that I have nothing to do with design and all that kind of stuff in this session. I'm just gonna be focusing on Redux and Redux Toolkit and only fill up API requests of them. Alright? So we're just gonna send some API requests and see the result in our browser console. Okay. So first off, after you created the whole React app, we need to install some dependencies which are related to all Redux. So go ahead and type this inside your terminal. Actually, it's so small, so let's use this terminal. npm install. You need to install first off React Redux, and then there is another one which is Redux.js/toolkit. Okay, it's actually the Redux toolkit itself, and it's the Redux we're gonna use. Okay, so I have these two installed as well as my React app inside here. So if you look at my package.json, you can see this Redux JS/toolkit and this React-Redux. Okay, we just need these two for this session. Okay, these are all about the React app itself. You'll have all of this beside React-Redux and Redux.js toolkit. Okay, after that, I'm gonna go to Rapid API and introduce you a API I'm gonna use in the session, and that is Open Weather Map API documentation. Okay, this is the API we're gonna use. To subscribe to this API, you actually, in order to use this API inside your application, you need to subscribe to it. It's totally free. Just go ahead and smash this test endpoint button, and you will be subscribed to this as soon as you choose your subscription plan, which has a free one. And it's totally enough for development, for teaching purposes. Okay? So there we go. we have our API ready to use, we have Redux ready to use, we have our React app ready to use. So the next thing we're going to do is actually implementing a way of API requesting inside our React application. To do that, first let's go to src folder, create a new folder called APIs, and create another one called app. And inside of my app, I have a file called store.js. Inside of my API, I have another file which I'm going to say, let's name it weather API.js. Okay, I think it's good. Okay, so let's start by implementing our weather API.js. In here, first off, we're going to import some things. So first off, I'm going to import create API and fetch base query, all from at redux.js/toolkit. Okay. After that, as you can see here, we have something called a base URL. Okay, and that's basically this. Okay. So this is my base URL. So I'm going to say base URL is going to be this. And after that, to send a request, I need params. We'll take care of params later, but we need these headers. So I'm going to just copy and paste my headers here. Okay. So actually, it's like this. Okay. Very great. Now, the next thing we're going to do actually is basically exporting this create API. Okay, so I'm going to say export const, let's say again, weather API is going to be equal to create API, and it's going to return an object. Okay, so our create API function is going to return an object. And what is this object? So we have a reducer path, which is going to be a name. It's optional. I'm going to say weather API as well as this one. As well as our functional component name. After that, I have our base query, which is going to be my, basically, instead of this, we need to say fetch base query, and we need to pass in the base URL to this, okay? And the next thing we're going to use is our endpoints, okay? We need to specify our endpoints. What are our endpoints? The endpoints are the addresses we're going to request to. So, for example, let's actually implement endpoints, and as well as I implement one, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay. So in here, this endpoint is going to be a function which has a builder, and then it's going to return an object itself. It's a little bit complicated, I know, but actually you'll understand better and better at the end of the session. So stay tuned with me and keep on writing the code I write inside your code editor. Okay. Now in here, we need to actually create the endpoint itself. Okay. So I'm going to name my first endpoint to be get current. Okay. So let's go to API to understand better. Okay. As you can see here, we are getting the current weather data. Okay, there are lots of endpoints over here. Climate forecast for 30 days. Every single one of them, if we want to implement every single one of them inside our application, these are going to be each an endpoint itself. So the first endpoint is current weather data. It's a request which Redux is going to send to this API in order to get current weather data. All clear? Okay, so I'm going to say basically get current weather data. Okay. Now, what is this endpoint gonna do? Here, I have access to my builder, which we had inside our function, builder.query. So we're gonna pass a query to this get current weather data. Okay. This query is an object, which its query is going to be something. Okay, so what is this query going to be? Okay, so in order to do this, first of all, we need to create another function. So what is this function? I'm going to name it request. It's a function which gets a URL, and it's going to immediately return an object. This object is basically includes that URL, that receiving URL, and basically headers. Okay, so headers is going to be equal to these headers. Okay, it's a way of passing these headers to this endpoint. Okay, to this builder actually, in order to get a in order to create a query. So if we don't pass these headers to this query, it's not gonna actually work, because the query are needed. The headers are needed in order to get a result from this API. Okay, for actually not only for this API, for every API inside this Rapid API, unless it's your custom API of your own. Okay, so we need to pass headers, and this is the way. Okay, there is a function takes a URL, and then this URL is different from this base URL. It's actually going to be this, as you can see here. It's going to consist of this header, and after that, this query we're gonna pass to our basically Redux endpoint. Okay, so there we go. I think it's clear. I should mention that if you got any questions, just feel free to ask your questions in the comments. I will basically answer them as soon as I can. Okay, so this is my query. Now inside my query there is a city. I'm gonna get the city, or basically I'm gonna get the query, which is a city, so I'm gonna name it query. It's better. And I'm going to return something, and that something is going to be request function. Okay, so what is the URL I'm gonna pass? So first off, I'm gonna use this weather. Okay, as you can see here, we have a weather. Actually, let's do this. Okay, and after that, we forget / weather, and after that, basically the query is going to be something which is the query we're getting from the user. Okay, so this is it. It's actually very complicated. If you are a beginner, if you are not a beginner, it's going to get you confused sometimes. But go ahead and, as I said in the beginning of this session, go ahead and after this video, create your own API, and basically use another API from rapidapi.com in order to get more familiar with Redux Toolkit and basically understand it better. Okay, so one last thing we're going to do here is to actually export these basically a reducer. So what I'm going to do here is to say export const something from weather API. And what is that something? Okay, that something, here's the thing. We need to have access to this get current weather data. Okay, we need to have access to this. How can we access to this? This is a way of Redux Toolkit. Okay, we need to actually export it as a React hook. If we export it as a React hook, we can start using it wherever we want. Okay, so how can we do that? I'm gonna say use, and then I'm gonna use its name. So the G is going to be capital, and after this, I'm gonna add a query to this. Okay, so this is a exported hook which we can use inside our application wherever we are inside our render tree. Okay, all clear? Let's go. Our weather API is ready. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is to implement this store.js. Basically, we have two more steps. Okay, first we have store.js implementation, and after that we need to do something else which I'll explain after implementing store.js. Okay, so what is this store.js? What is going to do? Basically, it's going to store all the results for us inside itself. Okay, so how can we do that? First of all, I'm going to import something which is configure store from Redux Toolkit. After that, I'm going to import my weather API, which was inside okay, the slash APIs slash weather API. Okay, now we need to export default this store.js. Okay, so I'm going to say export default configure store. Oops. And it's going to immediately return a object. Okay, so we need to pass our reducers to this object, okay, to this configure store. What are our reducers? Our reducers are the functions that have exactly access to the state and can change it, all right? It's not clear now because we are gonna just be using API requests, but in the next session, on the next week, when we create a real world example, when we create our own store and we need to manage that by our own, you will fully understand what is a reducer, what is action, and all that kind of Redux store concepts. Okay, so don't worry about that. Now let's just pass our reducer to this. So the reducer is going to be like this. I'm going to use this weather API, and I'm gonna set reducer to be equal to the reducer path. Okay, so I'm gonna basically what I'm going to do here is to set this reducer path to this reducer. Okay, very great. Now the next thing, the one last thing, is to implement a middleware. All right, so it's great. I think our store is ready to use as well. So let's go ahead and implement basically our one last step. Okay. So what is our last step? Okay, here's the thing. When you want a component to access this store or be able to change this store, we need to wrap the component within something called a provider. Okay, which basically needs the store object to be passed to it. Okay, so here's the thing. We have this store. We pass this store to our provider. The provider is going to be the parent of the component, which we want that component to have access to the store. Okay, it's complicated. I get it. Let's go ahead and implement that. Okay, so how can we implement that? I'm going to index.js file. In here, I have my app. I'm going to get rid of React strict mode. Now in here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to import my provider from this time, not Redux Toolkit, just React-Redux. So the next thing I'm going to import is the store, which is from ./app/store. Okay, so in here, I need to wrap this app inside this provider and pass this store to this provider in order to use this store, okay, inside our application. Okay, so in here, I'm going to say provider, and the store is going to be store. It's autocomplete. Now in here, I'm going to do this, the comma, there we go. I think our app is ready to use. Okay, but there is one question. I think you'll ask yourself this question, so I'm going to answer this right away. Why we basically wrap our whole app component inside provider? Okay, inside this application, we just have this app.js component, so we can basically wrap this component inside this provider. But imagine you have a more complex app with like 20 or 30 or 40 components, and if you want to go one by one and wrap every single one of them inside a provider, it's be a bummer. Okay, it's going to be a pain. Okay, so we know this app contains the whole components inside of our application. So we need to make ourselves very convenient and just wrap this app inside our provider. Okay, so this way our whole components will have access to this provider, and this store we pass to provider throughout this app component. Clean? Okay, let's go. Let's test our app. But before we test our app, we need to actually use the hook we created inside Weather API. Okay, and this is the hook. Okay, so I'm gonna go to app.js, whatever the component you want to use, and whatever component you want that to have access to the store, you can go ahead and use the hook like so. So in here, I'm gonna say before return, I'm gonna say const data, and is fetching. We are gonna be destructuring these two right away from our hook. Our hook consists of this. These are going to be taken care of by Redux Toolkit. We don't need to be worried about it. We just need to know what are these, so which I'm gonna explain to you in a second. So in here, I'm gonna say use what was the name of. Okay. Oops. In here, and then I'm gonna pass the city name to this. So it's going to be London, UK, for example. Let's get the data of London, UK. Okay, we need to import it. So I'm gonna import this from ./API/Weather API. Okay. So what we are going to do here, I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff. I'm gonna say return just a div and say done. Okay, so what is this is fetching? It's basically just a loading. Okay, if it's fetching, we don't have the data yet from request, and if it's not fetching, which is the condition in which this is fetching is false, we have the data actually, okay, or we have an error basically. So we are either fetching, or we have an error, or we have the data correctly. Okay, so in here I'm gonna say if it's fetching, go ahead and return just a text. I hate this keyboard, this loading. And if you're done, basically, go ahead and console.log this data over here. I think our app is ready. Let's go ahead and actually run the app to see the result. Okay, so create API is not exported from. Okay, what is the problem inside Weather API.js? Alright, what is the problem? Create API. Oh, okay, sorry. We need to import them from this path. Query, I think this is the path we need to basically import this create API and fetch base query from. So let's go ahead and okay, so we have loading and we have done. Let's inspect console. Okay, so as you can see here, we have all of our information fetched from API. So if I actually refresh the app, we have again loading, and we have done. As you can see here, our API request works perfectly, as fine as the Axios API request, and that's very perfect. So that was it for this video. We'll dive even deeper into Redux and Redux Toolkit, so stay tuned for upcoming videos. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below. Hit the ring, because I don't want you to miss the real world example we're going to be building in the next week. Thanks for watching again, and have a great day.